Welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I'm going to talk about how Trump's immigration policies have inspired other nations to do some outrageous things to nationalize citizens in their countries. For instance, one of the first stories I heard that was troubling to me was coming out of Japan. I lived in Japan for 3 years, from 2005 to 2008, while my husband was an active officer in the Marine Corps. And so I deployed with him and lived attached to Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, Japan. So I'm familiar with life in Japan. I also love Indian food in Japan. I know this is a very strange concept, but my experience with Indian food in Japan is by far one of the best. And this is what leads me to this particular situation. There was a Indian man who has lived in Japan for 30 years. He speaks Japanese fluently and has an Indian restaurant there, has an Indian restaurant that is very successful. I think it was worth something like $7 million, something like that. And so what he was famous, like what he made the news for, was his situation was that they were not going to renew his citizenship. And the thing about Japan is it is a very homogenized culture, in the sense where when I taught English there, I took that opportunity to learn about nuanced culture and political nuance as well on how like the country operated, from healthcare to, I don't know, like cultural, any like pop culture, not and nuance, culture, like social culture, between how like strangers interacted with people and like their kind of like societal structure where they like support each other and it's not like individualized. So with that understanding, I have asked when I was an English teacher, and most of my students were professionals like doctors and things like that. And so I asked them, like, how long does it take to be Japanese? Like in America, once you become a citizen, you're an American. And they're like, oh, no. Here, you could be here for 5 generations. If you are, for instance, Filipino or Indian, and we can tell if you're black, for instance, but it was really like if you're Indian was an example that they specifically had brought up because there were Indian restaurants. Maybe I brought it up and then we talked about this at length. And they said, no, like, unless you look Japanese, like for me, and they used to call me Kashi Sensei. They're like, Kashi Sensei, for you, because you look Japanese, you could be considered Japanese at some point. Not now, but like maybe your children, if they fully integrated and spoke Japanese perfectly and fully integrated in Japanese culture, maybe we would consider them Japanese. But if they did not look Japanese, they will never be considered Japanese, no matter how many generations. And so that made me understand why this could happen. But it made news because this had not happened in Japan. And I feel like this is something that's like sort of inspired by the way that Trump has taken our own, we've accidentally, sort of on purpose, taken people that are actual citizens, put them in ICE detention, and treated them poorly, inhumanely, tortured them. The Samsung guys said that they were taken in and they were not citizens, but like they were here on work visas. They were here legally. And we asked them to come here to teach our people the trades to be able to work in their company that they had brought to America. And they were reported saying that they were locked in rooms with their hands handcuffed and they would have to drink water from the floor, licking it from the floor like animals. This is the craziest in a modern day post George W. Bush Dick Cheney era. I can't believe that this is happening at all, let alone to people within our borders, let alone accidentally by happening to people that are citizens. And so this to me was sort of like the inspiration on why other nations are starting to do weird things with their immigration laws. Another story that just came out. This is now a Japanese resident who has been in Japan for, I believe it was also something like 30 something years, because he has a business that was a 20-year-old business. He's Chinese, but living in Japan with a successful new life and successful business and family. They go to visit family in China. The Chinese government at the airport stops his family and takes his children and makes him sign basically a document rescinding his Japanese citizenship and rescinding all of his Japanese assets, business, everything. His business was reported to be worth $11 million. And he had to do that, or else the threat was that the Chinese government was going to take his children and put them into like a forced labor camp and like forever. So he, out of fear of protecting his children, he decided to do what they demanded, and he signed over all of his assets in Japan and renounces his citizenship, and now they're stuck in China. I just don't. I've also done a lot of work in China when I was doing a lot of my fashion stuff for my line. I would go to China a lot. So I've been to Beijing. I used to go to Beijing so often that I knew Beijing better than I knew New York City in the first year that I lived there. I was traveling to China all the time. I think it was like 8 times in 1 year I traveled there. And I went to Shenzhen, I went to Dalian, I went to Shanghai. I was checking out all these different factories. And so I was navigating Chinese, mainland Chinese culture and understanding like their work culture is very intense, and it's a communist government. So they can do these things. And that's the thing that's strange and crazy to me, is that we now, because we're so globally tied together with like TikTok, we maybe have let our guard down and understanding that like other countries operate differently and they can do things that are very, very harsh. And these are things that we have progressively moved towards realizing are not the way that people should be governed. I think Mamdani is a great example of how somebody can actually do a lot if they actually have the intention to serve their role, their elected role, properly. Somebody had posted a TikTok about a pothole in New York City, and literally 24 hours later, pothole was fixed. And I mean, I live in a gated community, and I have 2 potholes that have not been fixed for over 6 months. Like, I'm just saying, I used to live in New York City 12 and a half years. Mamdani is a really good mayor. Like, I really wish I could have been there and voted for him. But this is also interesting. I am dressed to go to pickleball after this. One of the things that I also noticed, I was at a pickleball club that I just recently joined. And I was playing with somebody who, I don't know how it got brought up, but I think I was talking about the podcast. And, inevitably somebody asked, like, what's it about? I'm like, well, mostly politics, fashion, lifestyle, food, whatever, but mostly politics. And I said, I used to live in New York City. And she basically was saying, I could tell by the direction of what she was saying, she was going to be very against Mamdani. But she also doesn't, I could also tell she didn't start off by saying I lived in New York City or I'm in New York, like New York or whatever. So then I always have to realize, like, somebody who has never lived in New York City does not understand. New York is a crazy place. It is the only place that I have moved to, and I have lived in Japan. I have lived in Virginia. I lived in DC. I lived in California, both Silicon Valley and Southern California, both LA proper and Inland Empire. And I have never been in an environment like New York City where literally as soon as you hit the ground there, you're going to get conned by somebody. You're going to get taken for. I ended up talking to some guy in a hospital gown in the subway for 40 minutes. My first day in New York. Like, just not. or my first week alone walking around, like, while my husband was like at the Marine Corps offices, headquarters, doing his work. And I'm like trying to figure out it was, I mean, so then you have to, like, on the ground in New York City, you become tough. Okay. You'll get homeless people asking for change, you offer them change, and then they see the change in their hand and they take all the change. Like, and then you get robbed for being, I'm like, you're like, you know, but then there's also like the unity that comes together with New Yorkers because of the trauma bond experience of New York City. But, I fought off a kidnapper in New York. I came home to my apartment having been minorly burglarized by, so I think it was like Thanksgiving weekend, Black Friday situation. So this particular burglar knew that people in the building might have packages, gifts, things like that. So this burglar had gone through all the apartments and had realized that they could open the door with a credit card. Now, since then, they created these deadbolt things on there and they put them on the doors. But that's how the guy got in. And I had come home from work, dropped off my bag, went to my neighbor's house to go hang out. So I didn't go all the way to my apartment. And it turned out this guy was in there holding one of our like large flat screen TVs, and he was like leaving with it. But he had heard me come and open the door and probably like waited and then realized I had left, and so he left. The reason we know this is because there was still $10 in cash literally right by the front door. And when the detectives came, we were trying to figure out, like, how come there's money here if he was like, and so they pieced it together, like, he must have been here when you came home. So he had to like get out fast. So he didn't have time to even like grab the cash that's literally right by the front door that he could just take, right? And so that will give you, I was on the West 4 subway platform with my 14-month-old baby when a woman starts talking to me. I'm walking around talking to her in a figure eight, walking under the staircases, trying to calm my baby down. And then she takes the stroller. She tries to take the stroller from me, and I'm fighting her off. And I'm yelling, "Hey, let go. This woman's trying to take my baby. Hey, stop." And she's fighting me. And then she ends up running off when the train comes, like screaming at me. And and I luckily got a car. The next day I went and said to my husband, we have to go get a car. I don't know if I can fight off a kidnapper again, but that's New York City. I just need to frame that up. So for Mom Donnie to come in and be able to do so much good and fix so many things and create an environment for New Yorkers to feel safe and heard. And, we pay a lot of taxes. I pay more taxes in New York City than anywhere else, 40%. It's a lot of tax. So, like, you want your government to work for you. You want them to take care of things. And we're all in it together in New York City because you're on the subway. It's, organized chaos in the best way. But we also bond. We have great block parties there. I remember, like, the unity, the community. Everybody's hanging out in parks and stuff, and you see people regularly because we're all at the parks because our apartments are so small. It forms a different environment. No other city in the United States is like that. So when people try to talk about New York City and they haven't lived there, I really, really don't think you know what you're talking about. So don't go into this like whole concept of like, what do you think about? And I'm like, you don't even know New York City. So I was like, I live there, right? So then I'm starting this like, and we're trying to play pickleball at the same time. So we're partnering it, and then we're having these weird conversations in between. And then fast forward, this guy starts like sexually harassing her, and I become her like defender. And here's like the perfect metaphor for a progressive and a conservative right there. Conservative freaking barking at a progressive about things they don't know about. And then something happens and the progressive ends up having to rescue the freaking conservative. Like, if that, I learned so many things in pickleball. One day I will do an episode and explain the rules of pickleball because I know I have not done that. I know I've just gone into the metaphorical things I've learned from pickleball and how much it's helped me divert attention away from gaming and into winning at a sport that's healthy and social. But it is very interesting the different cross sections that you're for. Like, in a world right now where we're so divisive, there's certain places, as I've said before, where people cross pollinate and hang out before they realize that they're of different political persuasions. And I've said cruises and Disney parks, casino gaming, and now I have to say pickleball. I would imagine also like foodies. Can you get argumentative about I guess if you're talking about overgender, but I think for the most part, it's been very interesting that I've recently found that I've been able to make more headway with conservatives to a certain extent in talking and like building bridges as a practice of, you know, humanity and being somebody that realizes like you need coalition and cooperation, but also recognizing the people of the progressive persuasions have been really hard to sometimes maintain easy friendships with. And so I've noticed that recently. There's a couple. I don't know. I think that maybe there's a point, and I do recognize I have a podcast in which I'm talking about these things, but I'm trying to come from a point of view of like, how can we solve problems and bring people together, as opposed to how can, you know, like you did this and you're bad and you're wrong. I don't want to talk to you. You're forever. I almost said canceled, but kind of. And you know, I think really this is a reflection of fighting back against cancel culture and the idea that you are held accountable to such extent for your words that you would not be able to earn a living. I think that is the main thing that we haven't really like defined in our culture, why we don't like cancel culture, because it has gone too far, and that's how it's affected like politically the level of like what we're doing, and how it's like warped and twisted facts. Like the fact that Dr. Fauci is in trouble for doing his job really well is insane to me. I should be wearing my I love Dr. Fauci sweatshirt more often. I'm so glad that I bought it 5 years ago, but I just cannot believe that we're in these, like, you got a world where people are happily taking Ozempic GLP-1s for multiple purposes. Some wonderful, so stoked for people that are getting off diabetes and off insulin, and then other people like for weight loss, which I don't really have a judgment about, but I'm just saying that if you believe in, if this is like a huge scientific breakthrough that we have right now, how do we not recognize that we need to appreciate doctors and listen to them? Like, you can't have this wonderful thing that everybody in society is aware of, and so many people are using it, and then not also recognize like actual, you know, CDC, 4 different presidents served under head director under a time of unprecedented outbreak plague, and then we come through with a vaccine at a rapid pace. Like, only people that don't understand intellectual science, I mean, just how things work, scientific method, how hard it is to prove scientific method, how hard it is to be successful and excel in the world of science and medicine. And this is a meritocracy at its finest. Like, this is what you want. You want people to earn it, right? Dr. Fauci earned his spot. Everybody else that's in government right now did not really earn their spot. This government is corrupted, and money really played a huge part in it, but they aren't actual experts. Like, you can buy expertise, but you can't actually you can be rich and be stupid at the same time. And that's what we have going on right now. And trying to equate their ability to hold positions of power with intelligence is dangerous to our society. We have measles. We have, there's like, apparently leprosy is back. Like, I just really, and now RFK Jr. is saying that we should vaccinate. And I think that we've come full circle with that. I'm glad that he's saying that. But I just want people to understand that, like, we had eradicated measles and now we're back. Measles is back. 35-year high. Like, there is a measles warning of an outbreak possibility at Universal Studios Hollywood today. I just read on the news. So, like, I implore everybody to just get back into tactile reading as well. Like, I love sources like Substack. I love places where you can get good, because there was gatekeeping in mass media. We still see it now. But I do implore people to recognize that, like, we need to appreciate doctors and science, and, recognize that these inspirations that Trump has had in the world have been extremely negative and have impacted so many people. He is inadvertently killed 500,000 people, if not more. I think we're reaching more to like 250,000 people. 500,000 with USAID being shut down through Doge, and then probably another like 250,000 at least during COVID. That would be including my mom. And so and she was a Trump supporter because my dad was a Trump supporter because they're Vietnamese, and Vietnamese always support Republicans no matter what, based on the Vietnam War and that political kind of like story back there during that time. And it's complicated. It's very complicated for today. If we can't explain it to people in a way that they can understand, you cannot successfully get a coalition that votes properly if the money is able to buy the media that sort of brainwashes people to think that they're being helped when they're being fleeced, right? So with inflation, people, MAGA supporters in Ohio and other places where they're working in factories and they're losing their jobs, they're recognizing it now. But, it's like a brutal time for everybody. So I implore everybody to kind of reconnect with each other in person, tactilely, go meet up, go hang out. And, I think we're going to be getting closer to the end of this age of toxic masculinity at this level. There'll be a new phase, right? There's going to be a new toxic masculine version, but it won't be this version. And at least that's progress, right? So, all right. Until next time, give me a like, follow, or subscribe, and send me any feedback about any future episodes you'd like to hear. I'm going to talk about possibly in the future House of Stassi and, AI becoming sentient. Oh, man. But I hope so. I'm optimistic. All right. Until next time. Bye.